In this video, we schedule multiple on-demand recovery points for Azure file shares backups. Hello everyone, I'm Travis and this is Geraldos. Azure Backup is great, but the file share schedule policy is limited to once per day. This may not be frequent enough for user files or profile data. Most enterprise storage appliances you're familiar with provide more frequent point-in-time snapshots. After all, a nightly backup may help in a DR scenario, but if a user creates a file in the morning, works on it all day, and then it becomes corrupt at the end of the day, that nightly backup won't help. The Azure Backup policy for file shares only provides one backup per day, but we can trigger on-demand backups in addition to that. In this video, we use an Azure Function app that runs on-demand backups to augment the Recovery Vault policy. Before that, please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for notifications of new content. And check out my course, Zero to Hero with Azure Virtual Desktop on udemy.com. Back to it, there's something I need to point out right out of the gate with this script. If implemented incorrectly, this script could put your backups in jeopardy. Here's why. Azure Recovery Vault has several limitations that you need to be aware of. Two of the big ones related to this script are the limit of 10 on-demand backups a day and a total of 200 recovery points per share. Why is this important? Because the number of recovery points can fill up fast. Let's take a look at this example. Say we configure a backup policy retention of daily for 30 days, weekly for 12 weeks, monthly for 24 months, and a yearly backup for 7 years. That could be up to 73 snapshots. Now let's add 8 hourly snapshots during the day and keep those for 30 days. That alone is over our 200 snapshot limit, and the total snapshots would be over 300 if that was even an option. Here's why it's important. If someone configured the script this way, it would work until the snapshot limit was reached, and then the backups would stop. That's never a good situation. Remember, the number one step in disaster recovery is to keep a copy of your resume offsite. If we change it to only keep 14 days of the on-demand snapshot, that would total 185, under the 200, but it doesn't leave much room for on-demand recovery points or time for the scavenge process to remove outdated snapshots. If we configure it to run 4 times a day and only on weekdays, we can bring it down even further to 113. Here's the point. Know how many recovery points will be created in your environment and don't go over any of the limits. There's no guardrails on this script. It will do exactly what you ask it to do until it can't any longer. The next piece of business is the Cron Expression used to schedule the function. You'll need to adjust it to your local time zone accordingly. If you're not familiar with Cron Expressions, it's a set of values used for scheduling. It can get much more granular than, for example, every day at a given time. Each position represents values starting with seconds and going on to days and months. This Cron expression uses zero-based numbering. The example on the screen describes a schedule that runs on the first second on the first minute of the 15th, 18th, and 20th hours. It goes on. The day of the month and the month are not used, but we select days 1 through 5, starting with 0 as Sunday. That's every weekday. So for Central US time, it's running every weekday at 10 a.m. and again at 1 and 3 p.m. I'll include some links in the scripts that will help configure Cron expressions and a UTC time decoder. There's also a link that will return a human-readable version of a Cron expression. In the demo coming up, we'll deploy a function app that uses PowerShell, configure permissions to give a managed identity rights to create snapshots, and then walk through the script. Before we get started, the file share has to be configured to be backed up by Azure Backup and have a policy assigned. This script won't add backup items to the Recovery Vault, it just runs the on-demand backup. Let's go to the Azure portal and get started. Here we are in the portal. Make sure that your file share is already added to Azure Backup and a policy is applied. Let's start with creating a new function app. You can use an existing PowerShell function app if you have one. Just be sure to give permissions to the managed identity so it can create a new recovery point. Once in Function app, click Create. We'll start by creating a new resource group. This one will be called On-Demand Backup RG01. Give the function app a name. This example will use On-Demand Backup. We'll leave the publish as code. Select PowerShell as a runtime stack. Make sure to set your region and go to hosting. This can all be left as default. We'll go to monitoring. Once again, default is fine. Add tags as needed and review and create. Once it's validated, click create. We'll give this a minute to finish. I'll pause here and come back once it's done. That finished, let's go to the Azure function and configure it. We'll start by enabling the AZ module. Let's go into App Files. And we'll change this to requirements.psd1 and uncomment the AZ equals 6. Be sure to save the file. That will enable the AZ modules in this environment. Let's go to Overview and restart. That restarts the function app so it can get the new settings. Next, let's create the managed identity. Go to Identity under Settings. We'll turn this on and click Save, and then Yes. This creates a system-assigned managed identity that has the lifecycle that sticks with this function app. Let's give it rights to create snapshots next. Let's go to Role Assignments. Add a role assignment. We'll set the scope as subscription, but notice you can go to resource group or even storage as well. Make sure your subscription is selected, and we'll select a role. For this, we need backup contributor, and we'll click Save. Now our function app has rights to create snapshots in the subscription. Let's create the function next. Let's go back to our function app. We'll go up to Functions and Create. Create the new function, and this one's going to be a timer trigger. Let's scroll down to the bottom of this page. You can change the name and the schedule. For this example, we'll leave the name but change the schedule. This example will use the same schedule shown earlier. Once that's entered, we'll click Create. And that will create the timer trigger. Let's go into Code and Test next. From here, we'll overwrite everything with the new script. You can find this code on GitHub. I'll include a link below. A couple of things I want to point out. I have a link to information about the limitations of Azure Backup and Recovery Points. I also included information on creating a Cron expression. There's also a link to get a human-readable view of a Cron expression. If we add our expression in here, it shows the day and times that this will run. And keep in mind, this is UTC time. I also included a link to a UTC to local time zone decoder. Here it is. If we select our time zones and click 24, that will provide us with a 24-hour day. We can see that 15 is 10 a.m. Well, 18 and 20 is 1 and 3 p.m. Okay, let's go back to the function app. If you do need to change your schedule, be sure to save this. And then we'll go to the functions.json. From here, you can update your schedule. Let's go back to run.ps1. Let's get this out of the way. Here we are in the variable section. Update the expired days. The value has to be greater than 1. So for this example, I used 1.1. This sets the number of days before the snapshot is pruned. Add the Recovery Vault name and the storage account names for the shares. For this example, the Recovery Vault is Central Recovery Vault 01. Update with your example. Add the storage account name. This example uses CIR Backup Demo. And we'll scroll down. Next, we need to add a list of the shares. Enter the names of one or more shares that are on the storage account. If you have more than 2, just copy the line above. Keep in mind that case is important. The rest of the code starts by getting the expiry date by adding the expired days to the current date. Then it gets the vault ID and the backup container. After that, it loops through the shares to create the recovery points. Let's save and test. This will run on its own at the scheduled time, but for this example, we can manually run the script. We'll go to Test and Run. We'll give this a minute to finish. The first time it runs, it may take it a couple minutes to load the AZ module. It might take a minute to finish. I'll pause here and come back once it's done. All right, that finished. Let's go check out the storage account. Here we are in the storage account under file shares, and if we go to the first one, we'll go to Snapshots, and there are two of them. One was created when I first onboarded this share to Azure Backup, and the other one at 6:49, that's the one that was just created. Let's check out the other share. Same here, we have one at 6:49 that was just created. Let's go back to our shares, and let's mount this share. We'll connect by storage account key. I'll copy this. Let's open up PowerShell. We'll paste it in and run it. That completed successfully. Let's minimize everything. We'll go to File Explorer. Let's go to the properties of the Z drive. That's the share we just mounted. Go to Previous Versions, and there are two snapshots. From here, we can open up one and access previous file versions. That's how we use Azure Function apps to create on-demand recovery points. I hope you find this helpful. Don't forget to keep track of the total number of snapshots on the file share. Thanks for watching.